Welcome in, everybody, to the CFB Nation All-America podcast. I'm Bill Trocchi, senior editor at sportingnews.com, alongside Bill Bender, our national college football writer at sportingnews.com, and the president of the Football Writers Association of America, and the head coach of Bill Bender Elite, the youth lacrosse program that is lighting up Ohio. We're coming to you live on our CFB Nation YouTube channel again. If you want to subscribe, just go over to youtube.com, search CFB Nation, and click subscribe. Bill, we are already to week 12, which means there's only 3 more full Saturdays. I was thinking about what a different experience it is for the players who don't go to a bowl game, who are done November 28th, and then the players that make the college football national championship who are done January 22nd or whatever it is. Unbelievable difference to be done 2 months earlier. But, we got 3 more full Saturdays, and then we've got championship weekend, which doesn't mean as much on certain levels. But if I was thinking about it the other day, like the SEC game is always 2 high-powered teams, top 5 teams, probably going to be a good game, fun game. Big Ten could be the top 2 teams in the country this year, undefeated, Heisman Trophy on the line. That could be a great championship game. And the Big 12 of the ACC could be win-or-go-home situations. So it really could be a very cool championship weekend.
Yeah, I mean, sort of. I think what's happened, though, because the SEC and the Big Ten control, most of the playoff berths, and I get it. Mike DeCourcy, our colleague, has wrote columns about, it does mean something to win a conference championship. But like last year, I paid more attention to the ACC and the Big 12 championship game than I did the Big 10 and the SEC. The SEC was a hell of a game, too, with Georgia and Texas. I mean, it was a really fun game, but, neither team really went too far from there. So, yeah, it was definitely, it'll be fun, and in those group of 5 games, we'll have some intrigue in the American Conference, I'm sure, where that game will be very important to the college football playoff puzzle. But, I've questioned the value of those in this new format for about a couple years. And
right, but I think this year it will be fun. I think the Ohio State-Indiana game is going to be a twist, whereas Penn State-Oregon, it was like, okay, we'll just see who wins, and the winning team actually did worse in the college football playoff than the losing team. And so that was kind of like, to your point, a perfect illustration of your point. But I do think this year there could be a cool spin on it. 1 versus 2, 2 undefeateds, and probably the Heisman Trophy on the line.
Yeah, I mean, that adds to it. And the only other problem with the Big Ten championship game, and I've covered it several times, is as soon as it's over, it's okay, what's playoff? Same with the ACC championship. It's like, okay, you don't get but to your point again, Indiana, Ohio State, the Heisman, I'm sure it'll be a fun game. The winner will have probably the number 1 seed if they continue on this trend. But never say we're assuming a lot right now, because, we did those tiebreaker pieces at Sporting News this week where all it takes is a Michigan upset or an Indiana somehow stumbling at Wisconsin to alter everything. In particular, if Michigan were to beat Ohio State again, it would probably send Oregon to the Big Ten championship game. But there are a ton of scenarios there. There are a ton in the SEC. We looked at all of those this week. It was a lot of fun, and not a lot of fun in some ways to do that. But, I like looking at the combinations. There's no doubt.
So before we get into Trocchi Trivia and then our viewer's guide for the weekend, I do want to say that's the first time I've seen you since I edited your Pat Narduzzi piece on sportingnews.com. It was good. It's good stuff. It's up live. You reacted to Narduzzi's comment that he didn't really care about the Notre Dame game. It was absolutely not a must win. He didn't care if Notre Dame put up 103 points or 110 points against him. He's all about the ACC. Good column. I enjoyed it. And just give the listeners here just a little bit of a takeaway as to what you thought of Mr. Unfiltered, Mr. Narduzzi.
Yeah, he doesn't care. I've dealt with Pat for years, and some would say, okay, that's loser talk. How could you say that? Do you really think he's going to go in the locker room and tell those guys, I don't care if we lose by 100? Like, it's, Notre Dame has dominated that rivalry. But to the point, the point he's trying to make is the flaw that Notre Dame Pitt should be a huge game, should be a game that defines your season. And, the old classic rivalry 70s, 80s with this series. There's a large, I looked it up actually, according to stats, 30% of Pittsburgh is Catholic. So there's that too. I mean, there's some connection there. I know it's very similar to Ohio, where you have a very high Catholic high school football presence in those states. So Notre Dame traditionally was a big deal when they would come to Pitt. There's no question. Just like when they come to Columbus on those occasions. So,
can I interrupt you for a second? Is it a flaw in the system that this game isn't huge?
Yeah.
Or is it Pitt losing to West Virginia the reason this game isn't huge? It's kind of Pitt's fault. If both teams were 9-1, it would be a huge game, regardless if it's non-conference.
Well, they both have 2 losses. You could argue that the other way.
Saying. It's not the system itself; it's the teams.
No, just the fact that Pitt can lose this game, and it doesn't matter in terms of what they're trying to accomplish. Like, they're not going. If they were 9-1 or 8-1, yeah, they would get a home game, but they're not getting a top 4 seed. So, to me, if you asked any Pitt fan right now, if you could beat Miami and Georgia Tech and lose to Notre Dame, or beat Notre Dame and lose one of those next 2 games, every one of them is going to say, beat Miami and Georgia Tech, because then they get to go to Charlotte. And they might still get to go to Charlotte anyway when we're living in this environment where, the most absurd thing that we've talked about all week is that Duke has 4 losses and also controls its destiny in the ACC race. I think that's not a flaw in the system. That's a travesty in this system that you can have a 4-loss team.
So you're saying get rid of the auto bids. You're part of the SEC people who want to get rid of the auto bids.
And DeCourcy won't like that, but kind of. Yeah, like, what are we rewarding at that point? Well, you won your conference with 4 losses. Okay. Well,
yes, I do want to point out, on sportingnews.com, Mike DeCourcy has a really good column today. He is very passionate that auto bids are crucial to the CFP format. And Mississippi State president, who's the chairman of the College Football Playoff Oversight Committee, said that he would like to see no auto bids. He told Feinbaum, I think, and DeCourcy has a good column in opposition, strong opposition to that. So good stuff on sportingnews.com. As always, encourage everybody to go over and check it out. So let's get into Trocchi Trivia before we get into the viewer's guide for Week 12. Trocchi Trivia this weekend. Georgia and Texas played twice last season. Georgia won 30-15 in the regular season and 22-19 in overtime in the SEC championship game. 4 players accounted for the 8 touchdowns in those 2 games, Bill. 4 players combined for 8 touchdowns on both teams. Can you name the 4 players who scored in those 2 Georgia-Texas games last year? Hint, none of them are really obscure. Other hint, 3 of them are in the NFL. 1 of them is still with the current team and will play on Saturday. So we'll revisit that one at the end of the show. Who scored the touchdowns in last year's Georgia-Texas games that were really good? And we will talk about Georgia-Texas in a minute. But let's get into our viewer's guide. Friday night, two ranked games, actually, this Friday night. We got Clemson at number 20, Louisville, 7 p.m. on ESPN. Louisville still alive in the SEC race and the ACC race, but it's an uphill climb after last week's overtime loss to Cal. They obviously need to get this one. You see Jeff Brom basically staying put. So that takes another good coach out of the availability in the coaching carousel. He's staying at his alma mater. We'll see if we get an announcement on Clark Lee or Brent Key anytime soon, similar to Brom. But Brom is basically off the market. I'd look this up. If Clemson takes its 5th ACC loss, Bill, most for the Tigers since 1998, which is quite a long time there. If they lose again, they're supposed to lose. They are underdogs. Also Friday, Minnesota is at number 8, Oregon at 9 o'clock on Fox. Oregon in the driver's seat to be the Big Ten's third team in the CFP, but they have to avoid the upset here. Another chance to see the Ducks, who pulled one out last week. You looking forward to Friday? Oh, you're muted, so let us know your Friday thoughts.
No, yeah, they Friday. I mean, Clemson. I think that's a huge game because it will offer some clarity. I actually think Clemson's going to show up and make that one close. Come out of the ring game, Louisville ran all over them last year at Clemson, and it was eye-opening. So a lot of people are going to pick Louisville there, and I get that. And then, the huge spread in the Oregon game, some people are starting to wonder if their offense is a concern. I think getting back home after that physical game is going to help, and Minnesota doesn't have much of a run defense. A chance for people to really watch Oregon too. I think they're the team in the playoff, like top 10, that people aren't sure about, but they're still pretty good. That win at Iowa, again, say what you want about Iowa, they got out of it alive. So, I do think Oregon will win that game pretty handily. More interested in the Louisville-Clemson game because, again, in this ACC where we have very little clarity, if Louisville loses that game, it'll only further muddy that picture. It'll obviously knock Louisville out either way.
Right.
So
right. If they win, they stay in the picture a little bit on the fringes. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll clear it up if Clemson beats them because Louisville will be gone.
Right. So, all right, Saturday, the noon window, number 9, Notre Dame at number 22, Pitt, noon on ABC. Notre Dame is a 12.5-point favorite. We've talked about Narduzzi. Let's talk about Mason Heinzel, Oregon, Ohio freshman quarterback. He's 5-0 since taking over as starter. He's completing 64% of his passes, 12 TDs, 5 interceptions, also ran for a touchdown, averaging 302 passing yards a game. And guess what? Notre Dame's pass defense, 88th in the country in yards per game. So Notre Dame definitely has a challenge on its hands. Syracuse and Stanford are the final 2 games for the Irish. So this is the highest hurdle between them and a 10-2 regular season that would have them in very good shape for the college football playoff. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, the last 2 haven't been close. And, as Pat pointed out, again, when you take things off of a press conference like we all did, I did listen to the entire press conference. So he was talking about how, this is great for the city and this is a rivalry. He had like 6 minutes of complimentary things about Notre Dame, by the way. Nobody was talking about that. Both quarterbacks are going to be asked to do more in this game. And that's what I'm interested to see. Will CJ Carr, Pitt's got one of the best run defenses in the country. So for starters, can Jeremiah Love, who averages like 9 yards, 8 yards, or 8.5 yards per carry the last 3 games, can he cut into that? If he does, Pitt's in trouble. And then on the other end, like you said, does Notre Dame's pass defense respond? Going to be sold out? Sounds like it's a hot ticket. Before Narduzzi's comments, I was excited to watch this game. I actually think it's the second behind Georgia, Texas. It's the must-watch game of the week. There's going to be implications both ways. And I don't know if this is going to clear up the SEC playoff picture any either, but I know it's a big game for both teams.
Yeah, I mean, Pitt's run defense is really good, and their linebackers are good. It's like Love is you can contain him, then he's gone for 75 yards. Like, you just can't let your guard down. One play against Jeremiah Love, and he's going to bust it. And he has that home run capability that Notre Dame's going to need in this game at some point. So also in the noon window, keep the clicker handy. What do we got? We got the big noon game on Fox is number 18, Michigan at Northwestern from Wrigley Field. We have number 24, USF at Navy at noon on ESPN. Huge game in the American for the G5 or G6 CFP spot. Blake Horvath is back for Navy after sitting out against Notre Dame. We've got Wisconsin at undefeated Indiana at noon on the Big Ten Network, and South Carolina at undefeated Texas A&M noon on ESPN. So a lot of decent games going on in the background in that noon window.
Yeah, and Wrigley, Michigan. I don't think they've played at Northwestern at Wrigley yet. So, or maybe they have. Either way, I mean, it's always cool to watch that game in that setting. Michigan was pretty beat up going into the bye week. We'll see how they emerge out of that. We know I could easily make a Bryce Underwood fastball joke here because he does have a rocket arm, so it's good that they put him on a baseball field. But Navy with Horvath, that's probably the game that could get interesting because of the G5 implications for both teams. And looking forward to that. It was too bad he couldn't play against Notre Dame. Badly timed feature by me last week. Probably should have wrote it the week before. And then it's just, does Wisconsin or South Carolina make it interesting, or is it just we're filling in blanks for next week with A&M and Indiana? Both teams, by the way, when you, again, in these playoff pictures, it would be really difficult for Indiana not to go to the Big Ten championship game. It wouldn't be locked, but it'd be really hard for them not to go if they get a win on Saturday against Wisconsin.
Let me all right, let's go into the Saturday afternoon window. Number 11, Oklahoma at number 4, Alabama, 3:30 on ABC. Alabama is a 6-point favorite. Revenge. Here we go. Oklahoma beat Alabama 24-3 last year and kept Alabama out of the playoff for just the third time in the 11-year history of the event. Of course, last year was 12 teams, so Alabama really expected to make it after making the 4-team so often. Bama coming off a 20-9 win over LSU last weekend. Basically covered the point spread on that one. Basically hit it. It was 10.5, I think. So Oklahoma coming off an off week after upsetting Tennessee 33-27 on the road 2 weeks ago. It's a lot to ask, I think, to pull off another road upset. They've been navigating this difficult schedule well so far, but is it going to catch up to them?
Point spread dropped by a point, so that means there's some faith in Oklahoma out there right now with that defense going in. Alabama's played quite the grinder, but Alabama's at home, and they've been really good at home all year. Ross Dellinger had a nice story about the hoodie the
black hoodie of death.
Yeah, he has a story about that out. It's good. And it's just, I think Alabama's on point right now. They're physical on defense too. I didn't like how Oklahoma played when they played Ole Miss a couple weeks ago. They did not respond well there, and Alabama has better players. And I know Mateer's a little bit more healthy, but it's a chance to shake up. This is a game that could potentially shake up all the playoff picture in the SEC. But Alabama still has a mulligan here in SEC play. Like a 10-2 Alabama team's not going to the playoff. But I think they want more than that, and they know they play their scrimmage next week against Eastern Illinois before the Iron Bowl, so they could really, push up to as far. I still think they're going to end up number 2 in the final rankings because there's my pick to win the SEC championship game. Comes down to Ty Simpson reading that, staying away from pressure against that Oklahoma defense. If they get a little bit of a running game going, they'll be fine.
But they don't have a ton of room for error because they will have a good opponent in the SEC championship game. And so you put yourself in jeopardy if you basically have to win to get in, because if they enter that game with 2 losses and they lose the SEC championship, they're in the same spot they were last year with 3 losses, although they did make the SEC.
They won't leave them out if they make the SEC championship game and lose. They're not going to – I don't think –
a 10-3 if they lose this weekend?
If they lose this weekend and get into the SEC championship at 7-1, and they're I've without thinking it through,
it's dicey. It's dicey.
I don't think it is. I don't think Greg Sankey would allow for a team to make it to Atlanta to not be in the playoff. If you think they're politicking about bids now, because the committee takes that firm. They did it last year, right? Like they didn't penalize SMU for losing, and I know they only had 1 loss, but. I can't see a world where a team that got through this SEC grind that all these coaches brag about every day gets to Atlanta, loses, and especially with the Alabama label. But, that's an interesting play it out scenario because then you're sitting there, who gets in at their expense. That's the thing. But I haven't even entertained them losing a game and then getting to Atlanta. It's almost like, Bill, if you lose, you would just want to be like, okay, we're not going to Atlanta. We don't have to put any cards on the table. We're 10-2. We're in. Yet another flaw in this system that
Right.
everybody
That's
loves
the
so
flaw,
much.
is when you get penalized for making the championship game and you lose that game, and all of a sudden it's 10-3, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, wait, you guys lost to Florida State. I think everyone's kind of forgotten that
So
one.
Iowa State was in that position last year, right? So you're playing out an Iowa State scenario but Iowa State's not Alabama.
I mean, it didn't hurt SMU last year. That was the thing.
Right.
They were worried that it would, but it didn't.
I'm running through so we SEC and Big Ten, it didn't matter. ACC, Clemson loses, they're out, right? Like they wouldn't have made it. They weren't even in the top 12.
No.
So, and then Iowa State, give me a second. I want to look up. I'm pretty sure they were 10-2. So you're playing out a scenario that was the Big 12 championship game last year, essentially, right? Like I believe what a Google search that was.
What is Arizona State, Iowa State?
Arizona State and Iowa State played in that game last year. Both teams were, that's what you're saying, 10-2 and 10-2. Iowa State loses, they're 10-3, and they get knocked out. But that's a Big 12 championship game. That's the difference between the Big 12.
Yeah.
Could you imagine, like, that's a column waiting to happen, that if Alabama were to get there and lose 10-3 and then they get dropped out, Greg Sankey, the politicking would be.
Well, like I said, they set the precedent for SMU last year. It didn't really hurt them. I mean, they lost on a last-second 50-yard field goal too. They
won't leave them out. They wouldn't. And you would hear Mac Rhodes or whoever from the committee come out and say, we're not going to penalize these guys.
Sorry, I chuckled when I heard the name Mac Rhodes. Anyway, let's keep the clicker handy in the afternoon. Behind that Alabama-Oklahoma game is UCF. At number 6, Texas Tech is the 3:30 game on Fox. Another chance to see the Red Raiders in action. Number 19, Virginia at Duke, 3:30 on ESPN2. Huge ACC game. The loser is probably out of the championship race. We'll see. NC State at number 15, Miami, 3:30 on ESPN. Number 21, Iowa at number 17, USC, 3:30 on the Big Ten Network. Check the rosters on that one, Bill, before we start the game. And then Penn State at Michigan State, 3:30 on CBS. Michigan State got in trouble this week for using ineligible players. I don't know why they were ineligible, if it was academic ineligibility or something else that was unclear. Kind of curious about that.
The best part of that is they forfeited the game that Connor Stallions was on the sideline.
Because they were using ineligible
because
players.
Michigan State was the ones that were cheating. And that, well, here, real quick on that. So we have, I don't know if our listeners know, we have a site that measures like people are in the stories. So like, for example, the Pat Narduzzi, all these listeners are in Narduzzi, 15, you can see 15, 20, et cetera, whatever. There was a bunch of people in the Connor Stallions sign stealing story from like September yesterday. And I'm like, I'm staring at it. I'm like, what is going on? Why would 40, 80 people, whatever, be in this story? And as soon as I saw, okay, Michigan State's in trouble, that's why. Because everybody's clicking. Those two fan bases, man, they are the most catty fan bases toward each other.
Every comment was about Michigan not getting punished.
Oh, yeah. It wasn't about Michigan State. It wasn't about anything Michigan State did. How could they do that? And we get, it's so college football. I mean, and I was thinking, and then in my brain, it was, oh, wait, they did forfeit the game where Connor Stallions was in disguise in a Central Michigan outfit or whatever you want to call it. So, but as far as the game, yeah, these are ugly. I mean, that Penn State, Michigan State, that used to be like a huge game at the end of the season. Now it's an also thought.
And it's on 3:30 CBS. So I went back and I looked the 3:30 CBS games this year for the Big Ten and where they rank each weekend. And last weekend it was 3rd for the whole weekend. Before that, 6th, 8th, 6th, 4th, 7th, 4th, 3rd, 6th, and then 11th on opening day weekend when it was all of those. They're spread out over 3 or 4 days. So Fox takes the big game at noon. CBS gets number 2, and the number 2 Big Ten game this year is just not drawing eyeballs. So
well, and some of it's a product. I know we go back and forth about these rankings every week or the TV ratings every week. Well, yeah, the bottom third of the Big Ten is largely terrible. Like, there's no way around it. Like, it's hard to sell Ohio State, Wisconsin in the 3:30 window. It's hard to sell. I'm trying to think some of the others that I've kind of sat through. Ohio State's been on that one a couple times because they've typically put Ohio State on big noon. And then it means you get the second or third string game in that 3:30 window. Oregon, Indiana was good. That was a good one. But other than that, yeah, I think I'm trying to think which ones. Michigan, Nebraska was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that wasn't a bad game.
I think, that was the third-rated game of the weekend.
That was early enough in the season that they had it. But I think the Big Ten, this is one of the – it really, to me, Bill, is the difference between 16 and 18 teams. When you tack on those extra 2, you get some really crappy games. And the bottom – when we were doing all these tiebreaker pieces this week, particularly in the SEC and the Big Ten, I looked at the bottom of the conference when you're calculating cumulative conference winning percentage. And I just kept saying, man, that team's bad. Holy cow, that they haven't won a game yet. They've only won one game. And this is part of the problem with these conferences. And quite frankly, if I'm Notre Dame and looking at that, it's like, why would I want to go into that? I know I've been one of these guys that's ripped on Notre Dame for not being a conference for years, but why would you step into a 19, 20 team conference and Rutgers and Michigan State can't win a game and Penn State can't win a game. And then the SEC, South Carolina, Auburn, that bottom of the SEC is terrible too. So that's part of it. And I think these imbalanced schedules in the Big Ten, when you're trying to schedule 18 teams, it just doesn't help. Like, we have to sit through Michigan State, Penn State. Has Michigan State won a Big Ten game yet? Have they won one? I don't know. I think they've won one. I want to say one. They lost to Minnesota in overtime a couple weeks ago, and it was not pretty. I'm clicking on it now. 3-6, and no, they were 3-0, Bill, and they have lost 6 straight Big Ten games, 2 relatively close ones, not really competitive. What a disaster hour they've been this year.
Bill, there's a Big Ten team that lost to Ohio State 42-3, Iowa 41-3. And is 4-2 in the conference because there's so much garbage at the bottom of the conference. Can you name that team?
Is that or that might be Minnesota?
It is.
Yeah, they've got, and I think they're going to get drilled again on Friday night. And you look at the teams that they beat: Purdue by a touchdown, Rutgers by 3, Michigan State by 3, Nebraska Nebraska was a nice win for them.
Yeah,
but I mean,
so
PJ,
that's just the state of the Big Ten, and I think it's the college football gods saying you do not put that CBS pregame music before a Big Ten game.
PJ Fleck's going to go 8-4, dude. PJ 8-4, and with those losses, it's crazy.
It is crazy. So, all right, let's get into the evening window. Number 10, Texas at number 5, Georgia, 7:30 on ABC. Georgia is a 6-point favorite. I think they were a 6.5 against Mississippi State. Now they're a 6 against Texas. I know it was home road situation. But anyway, Texas is sitting at 10 in the CFP rankings right now, the last team in. And they have 2 top 5 teams remaining on the schedule. That might be the most fascinating question of the next 3 weeks. If Texas goes 1-1 as the last team in right now, do they get in? They host Texas A&M on Black Friday with a home game against Arkansas in between. Last year, Georgia jumped up 23-0 on Texas in Austin and then did what they had to do to kind of close it out. And an SEC championship game was a slugfest. Georgia pulled that one out in overtime. Awesome game. I don't think either team is as good as they were last year. I certainly think Texas is capable of going in to Athens and winning. They put up big numbers against Mississippi State and Vanderbilt, but those 2 defenses are not what they're going to see on Saturday night. Georgia has been just different this year, right? They usually win in the end. Tennessee and Ole Miss really lit up this Georgia defense, this Kirby Smart defense, for long portions of those games, but Georgia ended up winning in the end. So it's hard to call this game, but certainly it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I think Texas defense might be a little better than they were last year, but I'm not, maybe. I think they've been pretty nasty. They stopped the run. They've got a lot of good players on that side of the ball. You're right, though. Like the talent doesn't feel the same as it was when they were in the SEC championship game. Third meeting, and Kirby. This is another chance for Kirby. We were talking about that yesterday. Storylines. What are the two storylines? The two people we're going to gravitate to during this game. One is Arch. Arch has played better. I made the joke and I'd pat myself on the back. Said, "Give this kid time. He'll be all right." How's that working out? He's playing all right. Like you said, the defenses he played weren't exactly juggernauts, but he's played well. And then Georgia, Kirby. It's always about Kirby to me. He's what's he going to say before the game, after the game, if they win, if they lose. It's going to be one of those themes that all of our listeners love so much about how tough the grind of the SEC is, and we just never get a week off here at Georgia and all that. But yeah, it was crazy, not crazy to me, surprising to me that this was the most watched regular season game last year. I want to see if it's going to do that again. We all know Ohio State, Michigan will draw ridiculous ratings. But can it challenge that consistently? Because if it can, Georgia, Texas could emerge as one of those like go-to rivalries in college football in this new age. And with the resources both schools have, there's no question that can happen. So I am super excited about this. If I was ranking the games this weekend, you always do we talk about this, if you could only watch one game, well, I wouldn't do this job if that was the case. But I would watch Georgia, Texas first and Notre Dame, Pitt second. Those are my top two games. Yeah, and that's ahead of Alabama, Oklahoma. So to your point in the last little bit we were talking about, I've got to get to like 5 or 6 before I get to a Big Ten game I want to watch. And that's part of the problem here, right? Like Wrigley Field, Michigan, Northwestern, and then our late window here, we got UCLA and Nico coming to Ohio Stadium, but I can tell you how that game's going to turn out.
You don't need to be a college football expert to know how that one is going to go out. So, yeah, let's talk about that. Keep the clicker hitting. Like you said, UCLA at number 1 Ohio State is the NBC game at 7:30. And then Florida at Ole Miss, 7 o'clock on ESPN. Winner gets Lane Kiffin, maybe. TCU at number 12, BYU, 10:15 on ESPN. That will be a big one in the Big 12, and then not a ton else in the evening window.
No, Florida, and then that's the thing. Florida, Ole Miss probably the next one, because like Lane, you're not going to screw this up, are you? Are you like you did last year against those guys? Is the BYU, TCU, and then earlier in the day, I don't know if we mentioned Cincinnati, Arizona. If they both win, they set up a pretty big game at Nippert Stadium next weekend. And between the Cougars and the Bearcats, that could determine who plays Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship game. So keep an eye on the Bearcats and the Wildcats game. That noon window's filled up. There's a lot of really good games in it.
There is, definitely. So, all right, let's do the confidence contest, and then we'll go back to Troche Trivia, the Georgia-Texas question. So confidence contest last week, we each got 9. The race is as close as the ACC race, Bill. 9 points for me, 9 points for you. So you remain 1.5 points ahead. You have 94.5. I've got 93. I maintain the honor because we will revert back to the previous hole as if we're golfing here. So I will kick us off. We pick 5 games a week against the spread, any 5 we want. And we order them confidence style with 5 points being the game we're most confident in, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So my 5-pointer this week, I'm going to that crazy ACC race. I'm going with Duke -4 against Virginia. Chandler Morris may play. He practiced in a limited capacity Wednesday, so we'll see what that means. Either way, I actually think Duke is the better team. Duke's point differential in ACC games only is 20 points better than Virginia's. And Virginia's only loss was a 7-point loss last week. Darian Mensah is the number 1 passer in the conference, and Morris has slipped down to 8 in passer rating in the conference. Even before his concussion, he'd been struggling a little bit. I think Duke takes advantage of the fact that they are still alive and actually still control their own fate in the ACC race. I think they cover.
Yeah, not a bad pick. well, maybe it's a bad pick. We'll get to that in a little bit. I'm going to go Alabama 5, -6 at home. I think they're good to win that game by a touchdown. They've grinded out wins. They've covered every week at home. Now you're bound to burn at some point. I mean, they have not covered at home. So I'm going to trust Alabama in that 3:30 window. 6 points is a touchdown. If you're going to win, I could see this being right around there, 8-9 points. But I'm going to trust the Crimson Tide at home.
My 4-pointer, Alabama, -6.
So, yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma's defense is obviously good. Mateer he hasn't looked the same since his hand surgery, really. And I think the schedule's wearing them down a little bit. We'll see. They got a little lucky, I thought, against Tennessee. A little fortunate. And then, I just don't know if they can pull it out. Alabama was a little sluggish at LSU, but they still covered. And this is only a touchdown, so I agree with you. I think Alabama -6. So that's my 4-pointer. What's your 4-pointer?
USC -6.5 at home. Iowa coming off that was their all-in game. They sold out, played well. Now they go out to the West Coast. USC is taking care of business against Michigan State, against Northwestern, against Michigan. This is that time zone travel thing. I mean, Iowa's got a defense, but I feel like if USC can get out ahead in that game and set up the Oregon game next week, that they could open some eyes within a touchdown's a touchdown. I know Iowa can play, might be able to run the ball on them a little bit. I just don't know that if they can keep up with an offense that's clicking at a better level than Oregon is and is at home. And all of those factors coming off last week, give me the Trojans by at least a touchdown.
I was really looking at that one, and I was really looking at the Trojans. So, yeah, I agree with you. Didn't make my board, but I definitely agree with you. My 3-pointer, I'm going to the American. Navy, +10 at home against USF. Blake Horvath is back for Navy after missing the ND game, like you mentioned. It's his last game in Annapolis. Navy won this game by 3 touchdowns last year. USF's obviously good. I think 10 points is a lot in a low possession game. Navy has averaged 29 points a game in the last 2 games against USF. So I just feel like 10 is too many. I'm taking Navy.
I like that one, especially with Horvath. That's a dicey game for South Florida. And obviously, like we said, impacts the American race. One of our commenters says it's going to rain in USC in Southern California on Saturday.
Yes, it actually is. I saw that too.
Damn it. I didn't factor that in. So, well, I'll still take USC. I'm not budging off that, Oh, well, they can play in the rain too. My 3 is going to be Michigan 11.5. That spread's actually jumped a point against Northwestern. I've watched Northwestern. They've played some weird games with Michigan in the past, but Michigan's just better than them. And I think the Wolverines are going to try to build a little bit of momentum as well. The Wrigley Field spotlight. Michigan has a really high alumni presence in that Chicago area anyway. So, it's not like this is going to be a super hard road game for them. Northwestern coming off the travel, their offense is rough too. So I could see this being a 27-10 type game that the Wolverines keep rolling. So give me Michigan -11.5. I don't take them often. As a matter of fact, I've only taken them one time this year and they covered. So, I took Michigan State to cover against them. 2-0 on Michigan games. We'll go to 3-0.
I disagree. My 2-pointer, Northwestern, +11.5 against Michigan at Wrigley Field. Michigan, obviously the favorite, but again, I feel like this is too many points against a team that has given up just 19 points a game in Big Ten play. That's Northwestern I'm talking about. Michigan played well at Washington. Other than that, do they have any other quote-unquote great games? Michigan's average point differential in their 6 Big Ten games is 5.3 points. So they could double that and still not cover this spread. So
they beat them 50-6 last year. And, and here's the point. I got that stat, but Northwestern's played 2 ranked teams in Big Ten play, and they've allowed 36 points per game in those games. But maybe Michigan's not USC or Oregon, but I don't know. We'll see if they can score. So see. Good. That'll be a flex point game. I like
it. That's a big one. We got, that's a big one. So what's your 2-pointer?
Cincinnati, -6 at home against Arizona. Arizona making the trip. The Bearcats coming off a bye week. And like I said, I think they're going to set up that BYU game. Arizona's got some players on that defense, though. So it's this is one that Cincinnati, if you really want to make it to the Big 12 championship game, you got to have it here. And another, as you see a theme in my picks, if you count Michigan in Wrigley as a home game, which it kind of is, going with these favorites at home.
Arizona's record is kind of inflated too. They haven't beaten anybody. They've kind of they've taken advantage of the bottom half of the Big 12 to get their record up a little bit. So yeah, I like that Cincinnati pick right there. And my 1-pointer, I'm going Friday night. I'm going Minnesota +25.5.
That spread's gone up to the point where you have to take it, right?
It's a big spread, man. Yeah. So here are some of Oregon's point totals this year in the Big 10. 18 against Iowa, 21 against Wisconsin, 17 in regulation against Penn State, 20 against Indiana, and 34 against Northwestern. So 25.5, like that's a lot, right? So they blow out the really bad teams. They destroyed like Oklahoma State and Rutgers and stuff like that, Oregon State. But against teams with a pulse. The question is, does Minnesota have a pulse? Like I said, they got blown out bad by Iowa and Ohio State, but they've managed 4 Big 10 wins somehow. So I'm thinking just 25.5, rolling the dice. That's a very high number. And, they only had 16 points against Iowa last week because they got 2 on a safety. So we will see what happens with that one on Friday night. What's your 1-pointer?
I was flipping a coin. I had 2. I can actually tell our listeners to do it. I'm not going to do one because Father Penny will get mad at me. But I had that one teed up. But I'll do it.
You had Pitt +12.5.
I did. Like. But I also have Virginia. I'm going to take Virginia +4 as an insult to the ridiculousness that is the ACC. And I think Morris will play. I think both of these teams are bad. And one of them may represent the conference in Charlotte. But I'll go with that. Otherwise, I would take Pitt 12.5 though. I just, there's that risk factor of knowing Notre Dame's been smacking teams around a little bit. And so I'm going to, we'll have some fun. I'll take Virginia. It is 4, right?
Yes.
I'll take the Cavaliers +4. You shouldn't be ranked and in first in your conference and be an underdog against a 4-loss team. And
Father Penny with a shot, Bender.
What did he say?
Bender can take.
Oh yeah, I'm 0-1 when going. I think I'm 0-1 when going against Notre Dame on here, but I'm also 0-1 when I pick them. Picked them to beat Miami in week 1, so I'm staying away from the Irish on here. I don't want to curse anything, but yeah. I mean, so that is a very good slate this week. And I think, we've got a couple swing games on here.
We totally do. Let me review. We've got 5-pointers. So I took Duke at 5, -4. My 4-pointer is Bama -6 at home. 3-pointer Navy +10 at home. Number 2, Northwestern +11.5 at home, kind of Wrigley Field. And Minnesota on the road +25.5 at Oregon. You've got Bama, like I do, -6. You've got USC -6.5 in the rain. You've got Michigan -11.5 at Wrigley against Northwestern. Cincinnati -6 at home against Arizona. And then Virginia, your lone dog is Virginia +4 with Chandler Morris. Questionable, but trending in the right direction. So
I would like to point out, I bragged about how good I was at these 4 weeks ago, and I'm 8-12 since. So I probably should have. It's a lesson I always tell my kids. Once you start bragging about something, it goes downhill. So I'm like,
what does Lee Corso say?
What?
When you win, say little. When you lose, say nothing.
Say less. But no. So we got to do the trivia question, right?
Yes. It's back to the trivia question. So in last year's Georgia-Texas games, there were 8 touchdowns. 4 players combined for the 8 touchdowns. Can you name the 4 players?
Okay, I know 2.
Sorry. Yeah, 4. Yeah, 4.
I know 2 for sure. Well, is it 2 Georgia guys and 2 Texas guys? Or is it 1 and 3? It's 1 and 3. I think the same Georgia guy scored all the touchdowns. It's Etienne.
Trevor Etienne, 5 touchdowns for Georgia.
All right.
You are correct. So you got 3 Texas guys to figure out.
And you said 2 of them are in the NFL now?
Correct.
Well, is one of them play for the Packers?
No.
Damn. Okay, well then I got a free one there. Hold on. Oh, did Gunnar Helm get one?
Gunnar Helm did not get one. Good guess, but
DeAndre Moore definitely scored one.
DeAndre
I
Moore,
remember
he's
that
still
one.
at Texas. He scored a touchdown last year. You are correct. The other 2 are skill position guys.
One's still DeAndre Moore's still there.
Yes.
Yikes.
I can give
the running back.
Yes.
Blue.
Jadon Blue, correct. You're down to 1.
And I'm drawing a blank on the last one because I
want
feel
his
like
NFL team?
What's that?
Do you want his NFL team?
Sure.
He's on the Browns.
Texas guy on the Browns.
And he transferred from Alabama to
Texas. Bond.
Is Isaiah Bond.
Bond. I wouldn't have got that. And
you are correct. So
Matthew, my boy Matthew Golden didn't get one though.
The 4 players that scored touchdowns in the 2 Georgia-Texas games are Trevor Etienne, who had all 5 for Georgia, and then Isaiah Bond, Jadon Blue, and DeAndre Moore each had a touchdown.
I remember the Moore one the most. That was the only one I remembered. I was like, that guy does. And then it felt like Trevor Etienne had I can't believe he had every touchdown. It felt like he did. I can't believe he actually did.
He did. He had all 5, interestingly enough. So, all right, very good. Well, it's going to be a good week 12. We will be back next week, Tuesday, 9:30 in the morning, Thursday, 9:30 in the morning. We'll probably do a Tuesday night show after the College Football Selection Committee. I'm on vacation, but I think I can do it.
We'll do it.
We'll find out. We'll definitely do the morning shows. So thank you to everyone for listening to the CFB Nation All-America podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you to Irish Breakdown, your source of Notre Dame football information. Enjoy the games this weekend, and we will see you next week.